everyone. Welcome to week 13 in organization, leadership, and decision making. My name is Dr. Alan Dennis. I'm your instructor. Our agenda for today is first, we're going to go over the assignments and then we'll follow with a discussion on the reading. First, the assignments. This week we'll cover information about performance management. By the end of the week, you should be able to understand the key concepts in performance management and how it influences effective teams. We're also going to compare and contrast organizational capabilities and performance management, and you should be reading chapters 11 and 12 in the text. I discussed chapter 11 in the previous lecture in week 12, so if for some reason you didn't catch that, you might want to go back and watch it first. Week 13's discussion centers on what performance management is and how it influences effective teams. You should review chapter or table 11.1, define leadership behaviors in your own words, and note which behaviors are beneficial at specific organizational activities, for example, project planning, leading coworkers, etc. Please note at least 5 organizational activities and specifics when responding. Note at least 2 organizational capabilities and compare and contrast each. Next week, we're going to talk about information that is related to the perceptions of artificial intelligence, and you'll also be focusing on your portfolio. By the end of the week, you should be able to critique the various opinions of AI and note why there are multiple definitions, and also read the article so that you can complete the assigned discussion. The reading rubric, or the reading research paper rubric, is as follows. This is the same as it's been through the entire course. You do want to focus on ensuring that you identify a good thesis statement and subtopics, because that is going to contribute to the majority of this table. So make sure that you have those in mind when you're writing your assignments. Moving on to a discussion of the reading. Again, we're in Organizational Leadership by John Bratton. We're into part 4, Contemporary Leadership, and in particular, chapter 12, which is around leadership development. The learning outcomes. After completing this chapter, you should be able to explain various meanings of leader and leadership development, understand how leaders learn and the value of critical reflection, explain how leaders can be assessed for development, understand different approaches to the learning and development of leaders, and provide a case for connecting leader development to leadership development. In 2004, it was argued that there was a need to consider specific circumstances in developing leaders that works in different ways in different situations. Examples included large organizations versus small to medium enterprises, advancement in digital technologies used by headquarters to organize its multiple branches. Gold in 2010 offered 2 definitions of leadership development: a planned and deliberate process to help leaders become more effective, and a process of learning based on informal opportunities to enable leaders to perform as leaders. Figure 13.1 is a plan versus informal leadership development sort of conceptual framework. Continuing our discussion of learning and reflection for leadership development, how and where learning takes place, transfer learning from formal courses to programs, formal courses or programs to everyday work and performance, models of experimental learning, including emphasis on reflection, and with improved understanding, it helps with a leader's capacity for critique. For example, how to think critically, to critique the rhetoric, to critique tradition, to critique authority, knowledge, the critique of simplification, the critique of identity. These type of critical thinking activities help leaders to find new ways to think, to take action, and question whether their conduct is appropriate while working. Assessing leaderships for development. The programs created to develop leadership could be formed by theories and models of leadership explained through the other chapters in this book, or draw on ideas about specific leadership skills that are assumed to be of value. Competencies of managers are in question for creating of the appropriate leadership frameworks for training. In the United States, American Management Association is one organization associated with this. In the United Kingdom, there is the National Occupational Standards, NOS, critiques overly reductionist, encouraging leaders and trainers to view capabilities atomically rather than holistically. So they narrow in on each of the individual components of a training program rather than looking at them as an entire thing. Competencies are not valuable in themselves, but only if they are used at appropriate times. So it's not just knowing a particular skill, but knowing how to apply that skill and when that skill should be applied. Often lack a good evidence for the value of competencies within a framework. So why is something part of a framework? And is there evidence that supports that it should be there, or is it simply someone's opinion? A framework may set an impossible standard, listing an array of competencies that no single individual is likely to be able to possess, because we are all unique. We have different strengths and weaknesses. Some of us may not be able to do all of these things that are listed in one of these frameworks. Preparing leaders for development. Leaders need to be ready to respond to feedback provided as it affects their self-awareness, be feedback seekers, and having a learning goal orientation in developing new skills through still dependent on context, though still dependent upon context. So the basic idea here is that you only grow through feedback. That's the premise that's being shown. You may go out and learn some things, then you try to apply those things, and you may or may not be successful in applying those things, but you may not know with certainty that you were or were not successful. So someone needs to tell you. When they tell you that, it's going to potentially change your self-awareness. It's going to change what you think of yourself. And so it must be done in a certain way. And also the person receiving that feedback needs to be in the right mindset. They need to have an open sort of mindset, growth mindset, so that they're able to take that feedback and incorporate it and potentially change their behaviors. Again, all of this stuff depends upon the situation in which it occurs. So that's the context portion of the discussion. So additional approaches to leadership development are training courses and programs, executive coaching, work-based learning, and evaluation. Oftentimes role play plays a role in this as well. Times you will be placed into a scenario sort of based approach. You're asked to mentor and guide someone based upon a hypothetical situation. The reason to do that is you're doing it in a safe place. If you mess up, you didn't mess up the person, you just messed up in the scenario, in the virtual situation. You do that stuff enough, you do that stuff even inside of your mental sort of self-mind approaches to it, then whenever you're in those situations for real, you're prepared. So the basic idea here is it's a combination of training, coaching, and programs, and it also having someone potentially in an apprenticeship sort of way of executive coaching, someone that's in the position that you're trying to get to, take an interest in you and your capabilities, take you under their wing, as it were, and they potentially might help you achieve your goals and success and learn something themselves along the way as well. Additional approaches to leadership development include, this section covers activities that leaders can undertake to develop leadership abilities in others and thus enhance leadership throughout the organization through collaborative learning and dissemination throughout the organization, coaching and mentoring and action learning. So again, you learn oftentimes by teaching, and also the people you teach may in turn teach others. So coaching and mentorship is a very powerful way of doing that. And a lot of organizations have moved to a formal mentorship program where you literally indicate you are willing to become someone else's mentor, and vice versa, you look for somebody to be yours. And also learning in isolation is rarely effective. You need to be learning while you're doing, and that's what action learning is all about. And with that, we've reached the end of this discussion. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. Stay safe, and we will speak again next week.